This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
Mike Vrabel. Let's get to him. Let's talk about Mike. So Tom E. Curran, was on Early Edition last night, Greg, and he mentioned, which I tweeted at Nick C Radio, if you want to follow me, Vrabel is interested in coaching the Patriots. Okay. I don't talk to you about these things until we go into this podcast. Have you heard anything similar to what Tommy Curran has heard about Mike Vrabel?
I have, and yes, he would have an interest in coaching the New England Patriots. And I think there's a pretty good chance that Josh McDaniels would come with him. That's my understanding. That's what I'm hearing.
I'm tweeting this before the podcast comes out. Be mad at me, CLNS. I'm going to tweet this information from Greg Bedard. All right. The $1 million question, Greg. If you are Robert Kraft and you know the back channeling that you could have Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels, would you pull that trigger?
1,000%. Look, and it's nothing against Gerard. I think that I don't disagree with the Krafts in terms of I think Gerard Mayo is a talented coach, leader. I think given time, I think he'll at some point he will be an excellent NFL head coach. He's just not ready for this. And you know, to me, the calculus that you have to do with the Krafts is, I mean, they're smart business people. You got to put a percentage on it. You know, given what the Patriots have at this point with Drake May, a ton of cap space, a top 3 pick, a new football facility being built. What are the percentages that the Patriots, and it's not just Gerard, we're talking about Elliott Wolf, somebody who I have a lot of respect for, who I do think was qualified for his job. Just didn't execute it great this year, to say the least. You have to, number one, you can't worry about cost, anything like that. The simple question is, put a percentage on it. You've seen Gerard Mayo from soup to nuts, from his player to now. You know what's going on behind the scenes with this team. What's the percentage that Gerard Mayo can, in time, take this team to a Super Bowl, if not win a championship? What are the chances that Mike Vrabel with Josh McDaniels can do the same thing? To me, it's clear. And you have to put personal feelings aside. You have to do what's best. If you really, truly care, and how many times have we heard Robert Kraft talk about this, how he's a fan first and all this stuff. And, you know, it's the next to his family, it's the most important thing in his life. And the football team is like a family to him. Unless you're just full of crap, you have to do what's best in the interest of the franchise. And I don't know if there's anybody out there who could say that Gerard Mayo gives this team a better chance of winning a Super Bowl than Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels and, whoever else. Maybe it's Brian Daboll as his offensive coordinator. Don't go too strong on the McDaniels stuff. I mean, that's it's in the ether. It's being talked about in NFL circles, but I don't know that for a fact. But I don't know how you feel about it, Nick, but to me, I don't think there's any decision to be made. If you have an opportunity to do that, you passed on them. And here's the other thing. I know there's a lot out there about Vrabel and the Bears and McDaniels and Vrabel, going to the Bears. All right. Okay, maybe, I don't know. Does he really love that setup with the team president and the GM? They're not going anywhere. You got Caleb Williams, blah, blah, blah. What if they end up with the Jets and you're facing them twice a year and they have a complete rebuild that they're doing? I think all of that has to come into consideration. But to me, I don't know how anybody can make the argument that Gerard Mayo and everything that's around him right now, and even fixing it, bringing in, different pieces around him or whatever, gives the Patriots a better shot at getting back to a Super Bowl contender status than Mike Vrabel and a Josh McDaniels.
Mike Vrabel was the one guy that I would have hired before Gerard Mayo last year. I said it at the time in real time, and there's nothing that's happened over the last 9 to 10 months that would move me away from that idea. I would still take Vrabel over Mayo. Couple follow-up questions. The Jets, they have interviewed Thomas Dimitroff and John Robinson for the GM job. Of course, Robinson worked with Vrabel. I don't know how that relationship is. Reportedly, Vrabel was not happy when Robinson decided to trade A.J. Brown. So I don't know what that means. But as far as here, Greg, let's just hypothetically go down that road. Vrabel is hired as the head coach, whoever his OC is, whether it's McDaniels or it's Daboll or Tommy Reese has been thrown out there. Boy, Tommy Reese's agents have been working pretty hard too. Shout out to them.
Overtime.
But what does that mean for Elliott Wolf? Does Vrabel come in and say, I'll work with Wolf? Or does Vrabel come in and go, this whole thing? Because now you're putting the power in Vrabel's hands. And that's a question, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. It's an interesting question. I'll say, I think that, and this is where I was when, they were letting go of Bill. They have to make a decision on, do you want a strong head coach, say like Kyle Shanahan model, or do you want a strong GM? And it's one way or the other. I don't know how anybody can make the argument that Elliott Wolf should be a strong GM type, because you need alignment in the
Yes.
building.
Yes.
That's the bottom line. You have to. You can't, this piecemeal stuff like, all right, we're firing the coach, but Elliott Wolf is going to stay. We're going to bring in Mike Vrabel. I mean, this is what the Jets do. I mean, it's just terrible. They also, one thing I also wanted to mention, Nick, and I forgot to put it in a rundown. I don't know if you heard this, but I was listening to Curran, and I think he was on Early Edition or whatever, and he floated out. He thought it would be a good idea to have a football czar, Bill Parcells in Miami.
And Tom mentioned Pioli as a possibility. I will say though, Tom mentioned Pioli when Trenny asked him for a name. So he had just interviewed Pioli, and he admitted that Pioli was top of mind because he just interviewed him for his podcast. And I think it was, who's the lawyer? Is it Mike McCann or whatever his name is?
Yeah, Mike McCann. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the person who initially brought up the idea to Tom. And I think Tom's kind of working that idea on live TV. So I don't know if
he was workshopping it. Yeah.
I don't know if 3 days from now Tom will be behind that, but just the general idea of somebody above Wolf like Pioli to vet everybody in the organization.
Yeah, and I think, me personally, I think that's a terrible idea. I mean, all the examples that I can think of, Bill Parcells in Miami, you get a bump, okay? But at some point in time, it doesn't work. Bill Parcells in Miami, with Tony Sperano and what have you. Tom Coughlin in Jacksonville worked for a time. It devolved. Mike Holmgren in Cleveland didn't work. About the only one that I can think of, and I'm not exactly sure the timeline on when people were hired and things like that, would be Chris Spielman in Detroit, with Campbell and Brad Holmes. I'm not exactly sure who hired who or whatnot, but you can make the argument that has worked a little bit. I mean, I think that, I don't know if Dan Morgan is considered that in Carolina or he's just the general manager, but whatever. I do not want to do that. I think, when it comes down to it, say the Patriots do move on for Gerard Mayo. First of all, they're going to have to go through all the interviews anyways. But part of those interviews, especially if, and I think it would be great for the Patriots, a Vrabel McDaniels tandem. These guys have been around it. They've been head coaches before. They know what works, what doesn't work. They've been in this building. you get their thoughts on it. Let them, what do they think? And you sort of go from there.